All right, Matt, thank you for joining us today. If we could kick it off with a brief introduction, tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. Hey, Morgan. My name is Matt Mueller. I'm a global innovation strategist and best-selling author of the book, The Mindful Innovator. Spent my most of my career in the CPG and retail space, but going from working in stores to heading the launch of an innovation team. So ground up, white piece of paper. What does an innovation team really look like? What do they do? What's the philosophies? How do you fill a pipeline? Was able to transform thousands of stores across the United States, created some really great impact, learned a lot about what innovation was and what it wasn't. And that went into my book called The Mindful Innovator. And now helping clients like Nestle, P&G, Disney, Target, and many others help them with their innovation process and helping them really figure out what is next for consumers.
Great. Well, then I'm really excited about this conversation. Teed up a lot of awesome questions that are going to pull some great tips out from you. So let's start with you've helped with some of the world's most recognizable retail CPG brands, as you just said. You've helped them innovate from the inside out. When it comes to sparking innovation in frontline driven industries, what's often misunderstood by leadership teams?
I call it the white ivory tower syndrome, right? Where it's like when I was like in the retail business, when I first started off, I was a deli clerk, became a deli manager, and I remember like quite often I would get this like new request coming down from email saying, "Hey, we're gonna go ahead and start doing this new process." And every single time, myself and my team would always say, like, what are they thinking? Like really, like what do they even know what it's like to be in our shoes? Like we got that a lot. And I was like, you know what? We need to fix this. We need to correct it. So I wound up after being in the retail stores going into the corporate side of the business and quickly I realized I started doing the same thing. I was in that white ivory tower and I was kind of just pushing down these things into the organization, but not necessarily where the things were the right things. I think where like the disconnect can sometimes be is that we kind of misdiagnose the actual problem that is happening in our businesses and our biases kind of take over. um it's just something that we have to be a little bit more mindful of, where it's like we're really thinking about what is the true problem that we need to solve and being able to validate that problem. So spending enough time with your employees, whether they be on the front lines, whether that be in in different parts of your organization, different teams within the corporate walls, but understanding from each individual point of view, what is their perspective, what are the true problems, and what do we really need to fix to move the business forward. I think that's like really where leaders fall down when it comes to innovation.
You emphasize the importance of combining employee experience with customer insight to unlock new value. Can you share a time when bridging those two perspectives led to a breakthrough?
Yeah, my gosh, it's hard to pick which one, but it's amazing to see like how there could be such a disconnect sometimes within those two pieces of it. And I kind of think about it as like a triangle. So 3 points on this. One is the company perspective or company goals, like what are we really trying to get done? What is the employee perspective and what are they trying to get done? And what is the customer perspective and what are they trying to get done? And when we think about all three of those in the center, we have really powerful innovation. That's where really I think where you can find some of the most powerful innovation. Now, thinking back into the deli space, one of the things that was really important for the company was to make sure that we were giving samples to consumers because we thought that's what they really enjoyed about the experience. And we would mandate that employees would do that. And then we would go to the stores and see that employees weren't doing it. Execution was really low, like maybe 20% of employees, 30% of employees were doing this step. The rest of them just were not doing it. But once we started spending time with our customers, and shopping along stores with them, we learned very quickly that customers didn't care about this. They weren't looking for the slice. They would tell us, "Hey, look, I buy the same turkey every single week. I don't need another slice of turkey. It's I know what it tastes like. I get it all the time. So don't waste my time at the counter doing that when you could just get me out of here faster." When we worked behind the counter with the employees, we learned from them, well, they were self-selecting not to do that step, even though we were slapping on the back of their hand saying, bad employee, you're not doing that, because they knew their customers didn't want it. So they were doing the right thing for their customer. And thinking about that employee piece or the company piece of it, we just wanted to create the best experience possible, and we were actually nullifying that. We were not creating the best experience possible. So once we started to actually spend time with our employees and spend time with our customers, we noticed that these two sides of it together were actually complementing each other, and we were just in the way. But it's so important to think about, are your employees doing the right things at the right time to make sure that they actually are helping those customers? Because you really can't have a great customer experience if you don't have a great employee experience. So you have to make sure you're listening to those employees just as important as listening to your customers.
Yeah, that makes sense. So in your consulting work, you've led immersive workshops and, innovation sprints, hackathons, what have you. What are some overlooked design elements that make the difference between a session that shifts behavior and one that just fills a calendar slot?
Yeah, it's time and time again. I always see the same thing happen when these workshops fail. And usually, like, you leave the room really excited, like, oh, that was really cool. Like, it was, really inspiring. We thought about really neat things, things that we haven't thought about in a really long time, or for the first time, we actually thought about it. But then, usually, about 2, 3 weeks later, if you ask anybody what that meeting was about, or what the concept was, or what we're doing now, you'd be hard pressed to find anyone in the organization that either knows about it or has the time to even think about it. So I always find that it's really important to take the last 30 minutes of that session to really get clear on three things. What are the next steps that we're going to take? When are they going to be done by? And by who are they going to be done by? Those three things are a game changer for organizations. And it's just taking a little extra time. And I know it's really just you want to just kind of like, we'll deal with that after. We'll let everyone go home and enjoy the rest of the evening, and we'll take care of those next steps. But when everybody's excited in that room, now is the time to strike. It is the time to get buy-in from everybody. What are the next steps that we need to think about? What are the obstacles that are going to be in front of us? Okay, who's going to take care of that? When can you have it done by? And if you can get people in that room to start raising their hand and saying, yeah, I'm going to help out with that piece of it, that's when all of a sudden you have something that's going to really take you guys to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah. And that actually has connective tissue to my next question, revolving around hackathons specifically. We recently did a survey, and the survey found that while 81.5% of companies run hackathons at least once a year, only 29% of the projects ever move beyond the event. Why do you think follow through is such a challenge, especially in industries like retail or CPG? And what do you think companies can do to bridge that gap?
Yeah, it's purposeful leadership that needs to be really take place to that point. Say, okay, who's going to take charge of this? Short-term priorities and goals overshadow the long-term. It's the nature of the beast, whether it's a public company or a private company. Everybody wants results now. And let's be honest, after a hackathon is over, who is the one that has a 40-hour job that's taking care of that? Nobody, right? Morgan, it's going to be like, all right, well, Morgan, you have this day job, but also guess what? We had this hackathon. This really cool thing came out of it. We need you to put a strategic team together to go and execute it now. It's always another thing to do. And we are just way too busy to be able to take on another part of our role. So leadership has to really think about, what are those next steps that happen after that session and really dedicate the resources to it. Having a hackathon for the sake of having a hackathon, innovating for the sake of innovating doesn't serve us. It's a matter of how do we really move that transformation? How do we really move to the future? And if we have a person that can be the champion for that, and we say, okay, well, look, Morgan, you are going to be our champion for innovation. You're going to be the person that moves this project forward. You're going to be the project manager. We're going to give you resources to do it. We're going to give you a team. And you put those kinds of that effort towards it, and you put metrics towards it, and that's what you're getting graded on for your job, that's when you're going to have, real change happening in the organization. But you can't add something to somebody's plate that's already full.
Yeah, so it's more just in the setup process, planning, or having someone that's their full time job. Basically, is what you're.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. It is kind of like having the staging area set, like, for that hackathon. So before the hackathon happens, what's going to happen precisely after that to make sure that these initiatives move forward. If that's not planned out, don't go ahead and have the hackathon. Plan it out first to make sure that your hackathon is well timed. Well timed.
yep. So yeah, you clearly you've helped facilitate hackathons and or rapid ideation labs. What's your take on what does good look like in the hackathon format, and how should outcomes be measured beyond just winning ideas?
Yeah. So the funny thing is here is like I have a kind of a contrary view on this. I feel like every idea is a winning idea. There are no bad ideas. And one of the things that really kind of just hurts at the end of a hackathon is when we say, "Hey, Team A, you did a killer job, and we're moving forward with this concept," and then Team B and C, "Thanks for all your work. Nah, you sucked." It's not even true. But what I love to do in my hackathons is to take all of the concepts and dissect them. So after the session is over, once we're done presenting it out and we do have a clear winner, I like to dissect all the concepts and really start to put every single component of the concept on a post-it note. So every little thing that goes on there, like we are going to make this available on the cloud. That's a part of the concept. We are going to make sure that we are measuring particular KPIs. We're going to engage employees, whatever all the post-it notes are. and then evaluating each one of those components on all of the concepts to really find out what are the nice to haves, what are the must haves. And once you start to plot all of that out, your ideas become bigger and bigger and really creates true winning ideas because you're bringing it all together and you're starting to identify what are the things that are really important for you that you're going to want to move forward to. Good ideas come from all parts of the organization. Sometimes like those voices don't feel like they can be heard, but I guess like leading hackathons, like a really important thing or with bright idea solution is making sure that every voice is heard and that every voice has merit. It's equal, right? So it's like it can come from anywhere. Um, I challenge folks to like, how do you get people that normally don't speak up to speak up and put their ideas out there? Because there's gold inside their mind. You just got to extract it.
Yep. Your approach often centers on purpose and mindfulness in innovation. In an environment dominated by KPIs and speed, how do you create space for teams to reflect and still ship meaningful results?
Yeah, I mean, it's so important to I think have that purposeful and mindfulness. Otherwise, our results aren't going to be meaningful. It's like I don't think you can separate the two. I worked with this one retailer and they were focused in on fixing their slumping bakery sales. And they believed the hypothesis is that the biggest issue for them was that consumers are eating healthier now, and bakery is just not healthy, right? So they wound up saying, okay, well, one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to start putting healthier options within our bakery department. And you would think that, okay, they have a survey that says customers are eating healthier, so let's put healthy products there. Makes sense. So they started to do that, but they really didn't slow down to think about, is that truly what they wanted, or is that just one data point? So we wound up going in and actually shopping stores along with consumers to understand, like, what was really happening when they were in the bakery. And it was interesting to see, like, we would walk over to the bakery department and they would kind of look at the case and they would say, okay, and then just kind of walk on by and they would like beeline it right to the cookie aisle and they would put Oreos in their cart. I was like, whoa, what's going on here? I was like, you're in the bakery. You said you don't want to eat unhealthy, but now all of a sudden you're putting Oreos in your cart. Tell me a little bit more about that. Let's walk back over to the bakery. And we go back over to the bakery and they're like, you know what? Nothing really looks fresh over here. I don't know what's really good. Like you can see the condensation on the pack. That's definitely that came out of the freezer. That's not made here. It looks like a cafeteria in a hospital. Like these were the things that we were hearing about the bakery department. So it was very clearly that it wasn't about health. It was about crave. Like we were missing crave. Now we could have kept on putting more and more healthy items in there. You could keep on adding in more granola. That wasn't going to do anything. But if we actually slow down to be a little bit more mindful about what our consumers really want, we can then become more purposeful about the innovation that we need to place. Learning that insight, well, we knew we had to create crave in that bakery department. So what we wound up doing was, let's bake cookies in the middle of the day. Cookies were made at 5 a.m. in the morning because it was easier on an operations level. Like, let's get the cookies done, let's get them packed out and get them onto the floor. They were made there already, but you weren't getting credit for it. So what if we were to make them at 11 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the afternoon? Now all of a sudden you smell that brown sugar and just like that yumminess of a cookie. It created crave. In fact, my mouth just started watering thinking about it. So it's like, those are the things that kind of can create a major change in it. But it was all about really being mindful about the consumer experience and being purposeful about the direction we were going. So it's very easy to say, hey, let's just go with health and let's measure how many healthy products we have in the store because that's what they want. But take a step, take a breath, and say, okay, well, what do we really need to do here? And really just validate the direction you're going before you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've worked my entire career in like B2B SaaS, and it's amazing the amount of times that companies, it might be a top-down decision tree whereby the founder or CEO, they just kind of build what they want to build because they think that's what the customer wants. But to have that
Yeah.
feedback loop and know what does the customer want and feed that into the product development, that can go a long way. So I could see that also relates to what you're talking about with
Yeah.
just, just a customer at a grocery store. Same thing.
Yeah, definitely. It's the same. I think for all like leaders in organizations, like we have that like shiny object syndrome where oh that's cool, like AI. How am I going to apply that to my business? And they just find ways to apply it. But why are you doing that? And all of a sudden, like a software, it's like it'll just start to grow, and you'll have all these add-ons to it, to where it's like this software is designed to do this one particular thing, but it also can do this, that, and it could even open up cans. It's like what? It becomes the Swiss Army knife rather than very purposeful and laser focused on that one thing that it should do really well.
Right. Retailers are doubling down on in-store experience, which we just talked about a little bit, and tech-led personalization. What innovation opportunities do you see emerging at the intersection of physical environments and behavioral insight?
It's an interesting space, seeing like online sales grow, but also kind of starting to flatline in retail. Like you're seeing that this is a very important part of the business. However, the majority of our sales are still coming from in-store experience. So the flags are up there and signals are rising that yes, in-store experience is still important and will be for a very long time. Customers still really crave that in-store experience. But I think they also crave that online experience, and learning what they really do like about that online experience is extremely important. And then, because how do we then take those experiences and say, okay, well, what do they really like about the online experience? And how might we recreate that or replicate that in the stores to give them more of a seamless brand experience? I think one of the greatest examples is looking at, how people shop on Amazon. They read reviews, they look at the stars, they like pictures. Like that is a perfect opportunity for brands to start saying, well, how do I actually replicate that in stores? Digital shelf tags are a very easy and effective way to do that. There's a store over, I think, in Japan that does it beautifully, where they have like the digital screen there and it shows the stars and it shows what a consumer says about that product to give them that confidence that they need. Otherwise, a consumer is going to be in your store and they're gonna start looking on Google. They're going to start looking on Amazon. The next thing you know, they're in your store purchasing it on Amazon. So you don't want to do that. You have to think about what are the things that they really like about the online experience that took away pain points from the in-store experience, and then how do I transport that into the stores with thinking about things like digital shelf tags. There's so many different pieces of technology now that we can use. Another one that I was working with recently was working with RFID and being able to identify a consumer. Consumers love personalization. Personalization is so effective online. We know who is coming to the online store. We know exactly what they bought last time. We know what their behaviors are like. But when they walk into our store, we're blind. But if we had RFID technology or some other type of technology to identify them, imagine one of your employees coming up into a retail store and saying, "Hey, Morgan, how you doing today? Do you want to get that product you got last time? Like, oh, I have more of that now." Or, "Hey, you know what? You got this last time. You'd really love this." All of a sudden, personalization comes to life in the store to create experiences that would just blow people's minds. So it's just right there at our fingertips if we just start to really access that technology and figure out how might we do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about the feeling I had the very first time I was pumping gas and someone said, "Hey, you," and I looked over and there was a screen there and it was just an ad. And I was like, "What?" I don't recall what
Right.
year it was, but I just remember they're like, "Wow, this is crazy,"
Yeah.
But and they were, whoever paid for that ad, I'm sure paid a lot. But just to get the technology there and kind of where the technology meets the consumer, yeah, especially in retail, it's really interesting.
Yeah. That's a
I'm trying to
brilliant
think
idea.
of other experiences I've had like in store.
Mhm. Yeah, the
Yeah,
gas station is a great example. Like it's a brilliant idea, and it created a better experience at the pump because you're just standing there waiting, and you're making another revenue stream. It's like it's a no-brainer. It's just such a cool
yeah.
concept.
And this was definitely, that happened before the age of mobile phones. So yeah, you're just standing there,
Oh yeah,
kicking the tires, looking around, waiting for the gas to go. It's like, why not? You have a captive audience, do
yeah.
advertising to them. So it was a
I'm not
really,
washing my windows anymore. That's it.
yeah, exactly. Cool. So for executives who feel like their innovation initiatives have gone stale, what's one counterintuitive move you'd recommend to jumpstart momentum without overhauling the entire program?
I think it's so like in our nature to say, well, if this isn't working out, we need to rip it apart and start over from the beginning. I've seen that happen over and over again. I can't tell you how many times we had a pivot within an organization or when I'm consulting with a client because they felt like things were going stale. But I think we forget often that the most important part is that reflection piece. And I guess the Mindful Innovator, the book. I'm going to talk more about mindfulness, but the importance of reflection. I think we really need to start asking, why? Like, why did this concept fail? Ask others, why did it fail? Like, why are things going stale within innovation? And because it could be a number of things that are happening, and if you don't fix the underlying problem, it's not the actual program itself or the initiative that itself. It's probably the underworkings of that. That's the foundation. Are you overstretching your people? Are you measuring them on the short-term results only and not those long-term results? Is it not part of their report card? And are the initiatives you're tackling disconnected from leadership goals? If you have a strategy that say, hey, we're going to be tackling these three things as an organization, and all of a sudden this initiative's on the side here and it doesn't even connect to any of those, what do you think is going to happen? Of course it's not going to work. So I think if a program's gone stale, there's a reason why it has gone stale. So I would just challenge every leader to just sit there for 10 minutes and just really ask those hard questions and give yourself those authentic answers of what it truly could be, why this went stale. And definitely ask others to help you through that process and get their thoughts on it, because the answers are there. It's just a matter of uncovering them.
And yeah, you brought up your book a couple times, and I have it here, The Mindful Innovator, Learn How to Slow Down to Move Faster and More Purposefully. I guess, can you give us just a little, what are the cliff notes of this book if someone's going to purchase it, and where they can purchase it, and kind of just talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So the book I wrote a couple of years ago, it was based off of my experience of starting an innovation team from the ground up. When I first started the team, I really just I didn't know what innovation was about. Like, I thought it was about robots, lasers, and AI, and I just consumed as much like content as I could on innovation to get myself up to speed. In fact, there's 2,000 books that come out every single year on the topic of innovation. It's a popular topic. It demands our attention. Everybody wants to be a part of innovation. But I realized that that was creating this distraction for me. I was following those mantras of innovate or die, fail fast, and disrupt to be disrupted. And every single innovation concept that I executed out in market completely failed for the first couple of years. And it got really frustrating for us as a team. So we took a step back and we started to reflect, well, what's going on? What's really wrong here? And it wasn't until we actually had that reflection point to really start to be more mindful about the things that we were doing that we realized that we were approaching innovation completely wrong. And truly, innovation is about three key components, three key variables, I call them in my book. The first one is that you need to be solving real problems. So what is the real problem that you're really trying to solve? In the book, we uncover some of those case studies where real problems were not being identified, and we're trying to solve for these things that were just our bias, or were just because our ownership asked for it or leaders asked for it. The second component is that there needs to be a change that's going to improve. And yeah, no duh, innovation, you need to have change. But I think a lot of us have a hard time with our creative muscles because we are so focused in on getting the results now. So we don't really stretch our creative muscles. So what can we do differently to really be creative? And the third thing I think all of us forget, especially me, was that we need to get others to acceptance. We have to get others to accept that change is going to solve that problem. And when we do those three things, that's when we can have real innovation. That process helped us create some amazing concepts within the organization. We transformed thousands of stores, increased sales, increased operations, reduced turnover, all because we started to ask the right questions and really get deep into what are the things that we really need to solve, how might we do those creatively, and then how are we going to get others to come on board to solve those problems with us. That's what the book is about. You can get it on Amazon, anywhere that you would purchase a book. It's there. It's audio, it's softcover, it's digital. So I would appreciate anyone picking it up and checking it out. Let me know what you think. And thanks for getting it, Morgan. I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. I guess to wrap up, I want to, a heartfelt thank you for taking your time today and expressing some of your ideas around innovation, discussing your book, talking about hackathons. Thank you. Is there anything that you would like to wrap up and conclude with? Is there anything you have upcoming that you want to discuss and share with the audience?
Well, thank you for your time today, Morgan. It's been a pleasure doing this with you, and I support Bright Idea and everything that you guys are doing. It's an amazing program that I think helps organizations really think a little bit differently about innovation and really bringing those voices to life. And I think that's really what innovation is about. So just thank you for everything that you're doing to help organizations become better innovators. But that's all for me. But thank you so much for having me.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, and on our side, just go to brightidea.com. We have various products there helping innovators innovate. The best idea wins. We just recently released Hackathon 5, and yeah, brightidea.com to get more information and schedule demos. So Matt, thank you again. Have a good day.